Just 2 days after Bears fans were given one of the most joyous moments of the offseason, a bombshell drops and, well, it rips the heart out of Chicago. And feels like we knew it was going to happen. We were holding out and just hoping that it wouldn't. But it's here. And, well, we all got to face it as Bears fans. Statement from Chicago Bears Chairman George H. McCaskey and President and CEO Kevin Warren. Yesterday, the Chicago Bears Board of Directors met and voted to advance our stadium development project in Hammond, Indiana. With the exact site to be selected, we believe a world-class stadium project in Hammond will transform the region, connecting northwest Indiana to the south side of Chicago through the Loop and across neighborhoods and suburbs stretching north of the city. It will bring Chicagoland together and deliver new opportunities to its residents and businesses. This is an indictment on the state of Illinois and their ineptitude to cooperate with the Chicago Bears. Now, before you go crazy, yes, I'm not happy that the Chicago Bears are almost certainly going to be leaving the city of Chicago, but the state of Illinois. But at the same time, I become apathetic to what this state government has done in their handling of this situation, and they're entirely at fault for the reason that the Chicago Bears are leaving the state. Because the Chicago Bears had this plan in Arlington Heights. They tore down a perfectly good horse racing track to do it. They've had this ready for at least 3 years. They've been trying to make things work. They hired Kevin Warren to get a stadium deal done in the city. Not necessarily the city of Chicago. First the city of Chicago, then in the state of Illinois. And, well, the state of Illinois didn't want to work with them. The Chicago Bears were willing to pay for the whole stadium, the whole thing, no taxpayer dollars, to build this stadium. All the Bears wanted was on the property tax to get a bit of a cut. And J.B. Pritzker would not do that. Now look, I know that there are a lot of older folks out in the audience and just around Chicago that are pissed at this move. And they would have been pissed if they had built a new stadium anywhere and left Soldier Field at all. So I'm not concerned about them. They were going to be pissed regardless. I was hoping for Arlington Heights. Arlington Heights, that's a town that I visited all the time when I was growing up in the Chicago area, northwest of Chicago. I'm not going to sit... I know Chicago people like to get really, really bent about, oh, well, you're technically not from Chicago. You didn't live in the city limits. Look, I grew up outside of Chicago. I'm going to tell you that right now. My dad was born and raised in Arlington Heights. That's where I was born. I was born in Arlington Heights. The thing is, I thought that the idea and the plan was actually really cool. It was to build their stadium. That was, of course, the main project. But they were going to build a nice complex around the stadium so that there could be more of a district to do some other interesting things. Some restaurants, some bars, right? You got some live music that you can have there, some concerts. You got a little park that you could probably put in there, I think, if I remember correctly from some of the renderings. It was supposed to be this whole district that could be a new hot spot for, locals, right? You have to, if I remember correctly, there was also some stuff that you would have to work out with the train system to try and make that a stop so that you can kind of make transportation nice and seamless. But that, to me, felt like a home run. If they were going to leave Chicago, which I know a lot of people didn't want to happen in the first place, but I had accepted this pretty much 3 years ago, that they were going to leave Chicago, this was probably the best way to do it. Best way to do it, in my opinion. You kind of support the infrastructure. You don't just plop a stadium in the middle of some random city and some suburb and call it a day. You're actually kind of building more, and it's going to add and produce jobs that are, to build the stadium. And then of course you're going to have the people who are going to be working at the stadium. You're going to employ a lot of people to make this, after you make this stadium, and of course the district as well. But no, that's not what's going to happen. Instead, the state of Illinois is being annoying and is like, no, we want you to stay in Chicago. We want you to just not do this in general. And if you really want to, we'll let you build the stadium, but you got to pay, this massive property tax that no owner in the National Football League or any other sports owner would ever agree to. Look, there's of course the whole discussion about politics shouldn't be in sports. They're two completely different related things. Here's a perfect example of why that statement is complete BS. This is literally the politicians in the state of Illinois directly affecting the football team that represents Chicago. Directly affecting that team with their decisions. It's got to go through the court process. It's got to go through Congress, all this wonderful stuff. They tried several different bills to get this thing passed so they can build in Arlington Heights. They've been working on this for a couple of years now. The Arlington Heights racetrack was demoed like 3 years ago. All of this build up to a brand new stadium and the beginning of building, for them to say, no, we've had a deal with Hammond that Hammond just showed up 5 months ago and they're willing to work with us and give us what we want, so we're leaving. Bye. Look, I'm in the middle of this rambling and I'm just realizing I never told any of you why I am getting to this 3 days late. I've been out of town, haven't been at my PC, haven't been able to sit down and talk about this. So, there you go. But I heard this come through and I just sat down and just thought about, things for 15 minutes. And over the last 6 months, I want to say, I have really become apathetic to the Illinois government in this whole situation. Because the Chicago Bears, they want to leave. They want to leave. This is just how it's been for the last couple of years. The state of Illinois was not willing to work with them, even though they were going to pay for the whole thing. So no taxpayer dollars to build the stadium. They just wanted a little bit of a tax break on the property that they now own in Arlington Heights that has nothing there anymore because they tore down the racetrack, right? So now they have all this property that they own that is just barren, that's where they were going to build the stadium, but now they can't do that. They wanted a bit of a tax break on some of the property taxes. Illinois was not going to give that to them, so they say, see ya, we're gone. Look, I'm not happy. No one's happy about this. The ironic part is that Hammond, Indiana is actually going to be closer to downtown Chicago and where Soldier Field is right now than Arlington Heights is. But the difference is you're crossing state lines. That's the big problem that a lot of people have. Even though it's still technically the area of Chicago, right? You're still kind of in the vicinity of the city. It's still not the same. And in a city that has such a deep-rooted tradition as Chicago, this is a slap in the face to a lot of diehard Chicagoland residents. Look, I'm not old enough to remember when the Giants and the Jets left for MetLife Stadium. So I don't remember what the response from New Yorkers was on that whole situation, but I also envision it's similar to this, maybe even worse, because it's New Yorkers, right? But at the same time, New Yorkers don't see the Giants or the Jets as the number one team in the city. That will forever be the Yankees. In Chicago, the number one team in the city is the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Cubs have been around for longer, but the pride of Chicago is the Chicago Bears. When the Chicago Bears do well, the entire city rallies around them. And I think the big reason why the Cubs aren't the number one team in the city is because the White Sox are in Chicago as well, so you have that natural split between the north side and the south side, and it's more of an inner city type of rivalry more so than, a unification type of thing. So neither team can get, big to the point of being the top team in the city. That's the point I'm making. That's why the Chicago Bears are the top team in the city of Chicago. For them to leave is really rough. And honestly, if I still lived in the Chicagoland area and I still was an Illinois voter, I would definitely be taking this into heavy consideration for anything in the primaries this year, and any sort of elections in the next 2-3 years. Because if you want to be taken seriously, if you want Illinois voters to take you seriously, and you are going to lose the Chicago Bears to Indiana, then why would I vote for you for political office? Because the Chicago Bears mean so much to the residents of Chicago, Illinois. And for you to lose them to Indiana is an indictment on your administration. At least in my opinion. I'm not an Illinois voter. I haven't lived there in over 10 years. Wasn't my choice, right? I'm in my mid-20s now. 13 years ago I was in middle school, all right? That wasn't my choice to leave the Chicagoland area. The thing is, I understand why Illinois voters would vote this way. Because sports, for a lot of people, is an escape from something like politics. I personally am of the belief that sports and politics have been intertwined forever, pretty much. Like, you think about the Olympics, that is inherently a political event. Seriously. But we're not going to get into that talk here. That's not what this video is about. All I'm saying is that sports and politics have intersected at times, and they intersect quite a lot throughout the course of time. And they will continue to intersect in situations like these, when a government, a state government, directly affects what happens with a sports franchise. You think about all the other teams that are trying to get stadium deals done. You got Tennessee, you got the Titans breaking ground in Nashville. They're going to have a new stadium here soon. They're hosting the Super Bowl. Jacksonville, they're getting a new stadium. Guess what? Those cities rely on those teams for a lot of tourism and money from locals as well coming into the city. Like, those communities rely on those sports teams. Chicago is going to be just fine without the Chicago. They're gonna see probably a dip, right? You're gonna see profits go down or whatever, right? You're gonna see something in the economy probably, but the city of Chicago does not rely on the Chicago Bears to drive in visitors, to drive in profit, all that good, wonderful stuff. So maybe that's why they just are willing to let them go. And that is a real shame. Look, I've never claimed to be an expert about anything on this channel. I know that it's a sports channel, but I've never claimed to be a sports expert. I just watch the games and talk to you about them. That's not, I'm not some sort of expert analyst that's breaking down film. But I'm also, even more so, not a political expert. So there are definitely some things that I miss in some of the negotiations, but I can understand on a primitive level why this decision was made. It's pretty clear why this decision was made. Bears wanted to build a stadium. They wanted to leave Chicago. This was going to happen. You can say whatever you want about just the fact that they wanted to leave in the first place, whatever. If they were going to build a new stadium, you want it to be Illinois. Hell, I think they wanted it to be in the lakefront at first, but Chicago wouldn't budge. So they're like, okay, we're going to go to the suburbs. We're going to Arlington Heights. There's a great racetrack. It's not necessarily in the best condition. We're going to tear it down, and we're going to build a new stadium there. We're going to build a whole district and everything. We'll pay for the whole stadium. We have enough money, we'll pay for the whole stadium. We want you to give a little bit of a break on the property taxes. That's it. That's all they've wanted for 2 years at minimum? They just want some property tax cuts and tax breaks. I get it. It's the whole rich thing, right? Like tax, that's a whole different issue that we do not need to get into here. But that's all they wanted. They wanted a tax break on the property so that they could feel a little bit better about building the stadium. And the state of Illinois wouldn't give them that. Now, of course, this is from all that I know. This definitely has to be going deeper than just that. It's not just that plain and simple, but it is very frustrating because I've also heard that Hammond, Indiana is not necessarily the best community. But a new stadium like this could really spring up the community and really promote some refurbishments if it is really just kind of in a little bit of disarray. I don't know. But at the same time, you want them to stay in Chicago. Look, I know a lot of people in the city of Chicago really hate George McCaskey, and they hated Virginia McCaskey. I mean, the city of Chicago has really hated anyone in the McCaskey family outside of George Hallis. That's really it. But at the same time, there is definitely some validity to it. Their decisions after George has died have not led to really any success, right? When they had success after George's passing, it was mainly with guys that George brought in. They have the run in 2006. That's really the best that they have come up with since, anything related to George Hallis is gone. I get all that. And this does not help George McCaskey at all. George McCaskey already was seen as a villain in the city of Chicago, even more so. Really, I expect a lot of people to have this feeling now to Kevin Warren as well. There will be nothing for those two to gain trust or respect back for a lot of people in Chicago, which, that's their own decision or whatever. I'm not going to sit here and defend George McCaskey. I just am more upset at the Illinois government than George McCaskey, right? That's just how I feel about it. I feel like it's more on the Illinois lawmakers as to why this didn't get done in Arlington Heights as opposed to George McCaskey. And, it's one of those things where you would think that they would get a bit of a break just because they're the Chicago Bears, man. The state loves the Bears. The city loves the Bears. The state's going to want to keep the Bears. Apparently not. Governor J.B. Pritzker is okay losing them. And I know that he's going to be probably on the bill in 2028. That's probably not going to be doing some really good things for him, especially if he gets to be the Democratic nomination. I would not be surprised if Illinois flips red. But again, that's another conversation that I'm not nearly educated enough to talk about, nor do I want to talk about that, because that just becomes a whole different issue. We'll worry about that in 2028, but I would assume that this is going to be a massive decision that is going to affect J.B. Pritzker's campaign down the line in his political career. I don't know. We kind of all expected the day of reckoning to come at some point about whether or not a decision was made. It felt like this is the decision that they were going to make after that proposition that was in the Illinois Congress failed to pass. And, the Bears have made their decision. Barring something crazy from the state of Illinois, the Bears are going to be playing in the state of Indiana and representing the city of Chicago. And Chicago is not happy about it. Anyways, had to get some thoughts out there about this. I know that there are a lot of people who have much stronger feelings towards this. I got to know when this stadium is going to be scheduled to open, because that means I'm now on the clock to get to see a Chicago Bears game at Soldier Field. I know, I haven't seen one. I've been to one Bears game my entire life. 2015 Bears at Chargers on Monday night. It's the only Bears game I've ever been to. Been a bucket list thing for me to go and watch a home Chicago Bears football game. And now it's going to get a little bit difficult to try and get out there to Soldier Field. I mean, I have no idea how long the stadium's going to take. I would say that it's probably going to be at least 4 years before this stadium is going to be ready to open, because of course that means you have to break ground, confirm all the details, and then you start building. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is rough. It felt like it was all riding on whether or not that bill was going to pass in Illinois. It's exactly what happened with the Chargers when they left San Diego. Because I remember that vividly, because I live in San Diego. There was that proposition that needed to get passed where it would give Dean Spanos permission to search for a site for a new stadium, because that's what he wanted. He didn't want to play in Qualcomm Stadium anymore. He wanted to play in a new stadium and host another Super Bowl. That's what Dean Spanos wanted. The city of San Diego said, we're not going to be funding another stadium for you. And he's like, bye, I'm going to LA. And now he does not care that he is playing second rate to the LA Rams. He just cares that the stadium that his football team plays in, because it's not his stadium, it's Stan Kroenke's. The stadium that his football team plays in has now hosted 2 Super Bowls, because they'll host it again in 2027, technically, after the 2026 season. And I'll tell you what, the chirping is going to be very loud from division rivals when the Bears start playing there. It's going to be interesting, but it is what it is. What can I do about it? All right, absolutely nothing. So you got 2 Bears videos today. One on a very happy note about Caleb Williams becoming the cover of Madden, and one on a very bad note because the Bears are probably, most likely, certainly going to be leaving the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois to go play in Indiana. Just wonderful. Anyways, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in to the Chicago Sports Corner. Hope you enjoyed your time. Please give it a like. If you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button if you really liked it and want to see more content from me. Bears season and training camp is about a month and a half away, so it's starting to get close to the NFL returning to our television screens. In the meantime, we now have to sulk about the fact that our Madden cover athlete, Caleb Williams, is going to be spending probably most of the prime of his career playing across the border in Indiana. Anyways, I will see you all in the next one. Keep the conversation going in the comment section below. You're going to want to let me know what you think about this move. Please let me know. I'll see you all in the next one.